Hey everybody. Well, guess what? The Saints finally did it. And you're saying, Zen, you're kind of late to the program about it. I'm not late to the okay. I really wanted to think about this news because so much has transpired between the time that I said, and I made a video saying, hey, look, fire Dennis Allen. Okay, till now. That I felt like, maybe maybe I need to go back and think about what's happening, gather my thoughts appropriately, right? Uh, yeah, yeah, I am happy. I'm not happy for anybody who loses their job, but look, Dennis has a great deal of money uh, from his position, and no telling what kind of contract he has that I'm sure that's out there that I haven't had a chance to look at it that gives him a decent severance package, right? And puts him in a pretty good place for quite some time. Plus, let's not forget he was defensive coordinator for the Saints and making great money also. All right. And he was elevated to head coach and made better money. So, from that standpoint, he's fireable. In other words, he's going to be okay. And he will, given the fact that he is one of the best defensive minds in the game, best teachers of defense in the game, will quickly resurface as defensive coordinator somewhere in the league. There's always a place for Dennis Allen. But as head coach, it's a different story. And Dennis, has a tendency to be a bit too political, doesn't focus enough on the X's and O's in terms of assembling a total philosophy and making sure that philosophy is delivered on the field as a head coach. As a defensive coordinator, different story. Okay. But he was not a Tom Landry level defensive coordinator where he's applying engineering feedback and control theory to the design of a defensive front and coming up with something like the flex defense. That's not Dennis Allen. But Dennis Allen is excellent at teaching each player where they should be in terms of their position and what they should do at a particular time. That's Dennis Allen. He's among the best, if not the best, at coordinating defenses, which is why he's defensive coordinator, right? To do precisely that. That's what he does. He can then pull aside that individual player, talk to that individual player, really get hands-on. But as head coach, he didn't know how to square that circle of being an administrator and yet also being hands-on. You know who did it very, very well? I say it because he's not coaching right now. Bill Belichick. You want to know a great example of him doing that? 28-3. Remember when the Falcons were up 28-3 in the 2019 Super Bowl and 2018 Super Bowl and came back and win? That was because Belichick was on the sidelines literally engineering different plays to be ran certain ways based on situations at the moment. You can see on the sidelines, getting his guys together, getting his coaches together, making diagrams on whiteboards. It was a virtuoso performance by the best head coach by Super Bowl championships we've seen in our lifetime, even over Vince Lombardi. So that was Belichick. He set the model for that. Under that lofty comparison, Dennis Allen is not there, okay? He just simply is not there. And as far as I'm concerned, I called for Dennis Allen's firing, all right? November 15th of 2022. That was 2 years ago, okay? And the reason was that it was the way he was handling Jameis Winston. And remember in 2021, Sean Payton had Winston, and he coached Winston to I made a video about this one yesterday, but I'll talk about that another time too. But he coached Winston
Kalima Preforce.
To one moment, please. One moment, please. I'm on. Can I call you when I'm done? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So, okay. Anyway, Sean Payton coached Winston to a 14 touchdown. I don't you remember this? 14 touchdown. Okay. 3 interception season. 7 games. Stopped only by what I see as a criminal act by Devin White in grabbing Jameis Winston's horse collar and tackling him. Flag for 15 yards, but he ended Jameis Winston's season. Fortunately, not his career. He rehabbed, did Winston. And then as that was going on, Sean Payton decided to retire for a moment. Dennis Allen was given the reins, which is how he became head coach, remember, okay? And then Allen was given the reins and turned around and thought, hey, I will make the modern Kurt Warner, if you will, out of Jameis Winston by bringing in Mike Marts to be a consultant. And a lot of people talk about when Dennis brought in John Gruden, but no one talks about when prior to that, Dennis Allen brought in Mike Marts. Mike Marts is known for a mid-range to deep passing game that got the Rams their Super Bowl. I was at that Super Bowl in 2000 in Atlanta. They beat the Titans. Just barely missed, okay? Just barely missed. Coming back, Kevin Dyson was 1 yard from the goal line. I was in the opposite end zone. Heck of a game. Mike Marts engineered a play during that game that Kurt Warner ran with Isaac Bruce, went 83 yards for a touchdown. That's the kind of passing game that Dennis had in his head. But in order to run that, you have to be satisfied with one fact. Your quarterback is going to get beaten up. If you copy everything as Marts wanted, including blocking where the line is retreating, it was one thing to do that 24 years ago, but to do it 2 years ago, where you have linemen literally arguably twice as fast on the defense, strong enough to bench press cars like, Beatles. When you have that situation, almost, okay? When you have that situation, it becomes murder to put your quarterback in an offense like that, crafted really in the 80s and the 90s. All right. And it just barely made it into the turn of the century, right? In terms of blocking style. And then say, hey, Jameis, we're going to put you in this, but not tell him, by the way, you might get killed, because that's precisely what happened. Remember the Atlanta game that year, 2022, where Jameis was getting sacked 4 times in the first half. They were not hitting on all cylinders by any means. And then Pete Carmichael smartly decided to let Jameis cook. He decided to let him run a 2-minute offense in the fourth quarter. Jameis wound up throwing for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, came and a field goal, came back and won and shocked the crap out of everybody yet again. Okay? Yet again. All right? So that was game 1. But something happened during game 1. What happened? Jameis wound up literally breaking his back and injuring his toe. All right? By the time he got to the third game against the Carolina Panthers, Jameis Winston was so beat up that he could barely move. The man should not have played there. He re-injured his toes against the Buccaneers in the second, in the game which was the second game, okay, where he, which everybody thought was going to be a replay of the year before, right? But it wasn't a replay because the Saints were not using a ball control passing offense. They were using the Marts approach. That was what Dennis Allen did. And so what happened was that the Bucs wound up winning a low-scoring contest, a contest the Saints could have won if it were using Sean Payton's approach. That didn't happen. And so he managed also to break his toe. So by the time Jameis goes into the Panthers game, he's got a broken back and a broken toe and a couple of other injuries that are comparatively minor, but as a whole spell beaten up quarterback. And then he gets beaten up some more because the Panthers are deciding to blitz their safety from the weak side position or from the open position against the slot on that side. Pete Carmichael put in no answer for Jameis, and they were literally get Jameis killed. Okay? Literally. It looked like they were trying to kill Jameis Winston. This is what I said. It looked like that they were trying to kill Jameis Winston to bring in somebody else, to bring in Andy Dalton. That's what it looked like to me then. It still looks like that to me now. And that's why I said, you know what? Fire this guy. Okay? Fire this guy. I mean, if you don't want a quarterback because he's black, just admit that's your problem and get out of the National Football League. Because that's how he acted. All right? That's how he acted. Again, in my opinion, but I have a lot of reasons to hold that opinion. I really do. I don't know what they're reading, if they're buying the whole fake story about Erica Kinsman. By the way, her boyfriend, now husband, basically admitted to me that they were trying to cover up their own fraud. Why? Because he was trying to take down the video that I accused him of that. He failed. I won. Then he called me. That's documented. I don't want to get off on that. Come back to here. All right. This is what the Saints said when they announced the firing of Dennis Allen. Right here. The New Orleans Saints have announced today that head coach Dennis Allen has been relieved of his duties. Special teams coordinator Darren Reese has been named interim head coach. Allen was named the head coach of the New Orleans Saints on February 8th, 2022. He became the 17th head coach in the franchise's history. Dennis has been a part of our organization for many years. He's highly regarded within the NFL. He's been extremely loyal and professional, and most importantly, an excellent football coach for us. All this makes today very tough for me and our organization, said Saints owner Gail Benson. However, this decision is something that I felt we needed to make at this time. I wish nothing but the best in the future for Dennis and his family. He will always be considered in the highest regard by me and everyone within our organization. DA is an excellent football coach, said Saints executive vice president and general manager Mickey Loomis. This season, we've had an avalanche of injuries. It took its toll. DA has never offered excuses. He fought each day for this organization and this team, and that is what makes today disappointing. Dennis has been an integral part of this organization's success for the better part of 20 years. He will be missed. The organization did not announce any other coaching changes. And so there's that, right? And then there is this bit of news on top of all of that. The statement from Dennis Allen. And this is what Dennis Allen said. Dennis Allen said, to follow up on this, right? This is what Dennis Allen said. Dennis Allen said the following. I want to take this opportunity to first and foremost thank Gail Benson for the opportunity to be the head coach of the Orleans Saints. The organization will always be near and dear to my heart, and I'm disappointed the results weren't better. I also want to thank Mickey Loomis for the support he and his staff provided through the entire time I was with the organization. I am proud to have worked alongside some great coaches, both as an assistant and during my time as head coach. To those men, I am sincerely grateful for the time and effort they put into their jobs. I'm also grateful for the entire staff that worked hard to provide the support I will miss our daily interactions. To every player, thank you for your efforts and contributions. As I said on Sunday, I never questioned your dedication and resolve, and I'm so sorry the results weren't better because they were certainly deserved. Lastly, to the Saints fans and residents of New Orleans, I want to thank you for your unwavering passion and support of the team. I realize what a privilege it is to coach a special franchise in a great city, and I will fondly remember the opportunity I had to coach the Saints. I wish everyone with the Saints the best of luck and success going forward. Good, a good statement. But hey, let's dive into that, because how did the firing happen? It firing because Gail Benson, who I saw when I was at the NFL owners meeting, didn't chance to talk with her. I didn't yell out, "Are you going to fire Dennis Allen?" Because at the time, well, I probably should have. But at any rate, I didn't. The bottom line is that this all started because Gail, Mrs. Benson, the great 1-2 punch of the great couple, because he's passed away, Tom Grinson and Gail Benson, decided to find out for herself what was going on with her team. And so she talked directly to the players. And boy, you could tell by their milquetoast play on the field, just not giving all their effort, that they were done a long, long time ago. A long, long time ago. And a lot of it, I believe, you could go back and point to how Dennis handled Jameis when Jameis scored that touchdown against the Falcons. The Falcons had already gotten the crap beat out of them. All right. Pass is intercepted. It happens to come back to the one. You got a running back there who, if he gets a touchdown, he gets an extra $1 million. So the players are saying, hey, let's help him. Why not? If I were the coach, I would say, yeah, go for it. Fine. Okay. I would say, well, maybe we shouldn't, but I get it. Okay. So they get the touchdown. All right. Arthur Smith goes off on Dennis. I would have said, hey, look, this is what my players wanted to do. I'm sorry for the circumstances, but I cannot let my players down. Now, if he's going to turn around and punch me on the field, then, hey, look, that's, between him and the police in jail. Okay? He can yell what he wants to, but you honor your players. Dennis did not back his players, and he didn't back Jameis. And then it made it look like he was happy to get Jameis out of the building and give him to Cleveland, for that singular issue. And people say, well, he changed the play, he did this. Well, for anybody who has a little bit of history, in the past, quarterbacks commonly change plays that were sent in by the coach. Joe Montana is famous for saying, oh, Bill Walsh, I think the old man's losing it, so I'm going to call this thing. All right? You don't say, well, now that I have a black quarterback, he's supposed to be a robot, and he's not supposed to think. Okay? That's not what's supposed to happen. And so ultimately, the players got tired of Dennis's act, and were just literally playing out the string. You say, okay, Zenny, how do you explain the first 2 games? Easy peasy. When you bring a new offense for which there is no book on the team running it, having had it before, it makes it harder for their opponents to prepare, because there's no game that they can go back to and say, okay, well, on this time, at this particular moment, they did X, and on that particular moment, they did Y, and we found this tendency and that tendency and that tendency, blah, blah, blah. Because the analytical departments, they are huge. Once they get a beat on you, that's it. Okay? That's it. Or it should be. If you're applying what they discover. That's another story. I thought 5 games and we'll see where the Saints really are. You know what? It took 3. The first 2 were balling out, and the third, to make it obvious that teams started catching up, playing, defense is closer, noticing their different tendencies, and beating them to the punch, and also gaining wins. And then win after win after win. And the more the wins came, the more frustrated the Saints were. Because the offense that they had, the new approach, the San Francisco 49ers zone approach that's popularized in Michael Silver's great book, The Why is Everything, which I have a copy of. Thank you, Mike. That approach. But what happened was that now people have a book on it. And if you're just using a small set of plays from it, once you use those plays and you've established a tendency when you're going to use them, the team has you. The team you're going to play against next has you, because every move you make is documented. And so once they've got the book on how to stop your offense, oh, and then by the way, they're used to your defense and they understand how to gain yardage against your defense and everything, and then your players may be a little bit old in the tooth and all that. Guess what happens, folks? All those weaknesses that were covered up the first 2 games because the offense was so effective, what happens? They come back into 4. That's what happens. And that's what happened to the Saints. Dennis had no answer. Dennis wasn't the technically minded coach that could jump in there like Belichick or Tom Landry and fix things on the fly. All right. And so he didn't. The team literally crashed and burned, and so did his time with the Saints this week. And so there you go. That's what happened. You have to adjust to what teams do every single week. You can't just say, hey, look, I've got a new system and I'm going to call it a day. Because once the teams analyze your system, you have to figure out something else different and new to do with it. I don't care if it's little things like running a play that you ran to the right, to the left, or wholesale changing a formation. Whatever it is you have to do it. From an analytical perspective, from a schematic perspective, you got to do it. That is a style that Bill Belichick popularized. It took the league a long time to catch up with it, but now, and you get Mike Silver's book, you'll discover this is where the NFL is now. Every team either has a Bill Belichick-like approach or is being pounded by a team that has it and doesn't use it, but eventually will wind up using it. And what is that? That's coming up with tailored game plans for each opponent every single week. The Browns didn't do that against the Chargers. On offense, they literally, the Browns did, brought in the same approach overall that they did with the Ravens. The difference was that the first time it was new. Why? New signal caller, Ken Dorsey. New quarterback, Jameis Winston, with different strengths, therefore different tendencies. And the Ravens had to adjust on the fly, but not the Chargers. Why? Because, hey, the book was written. The book was written, and Ken Dorsey didn't get that memo. And so from the start, you can see it. Winston and company look confused with approaches that it's like they didn't expect to see. Jameis is out there calling audibles, changing plays, trying to figure out how to solve the riddle of the Chargers defense that they didn't expect to see. And that's where the 3 interceptions came. And you have all these idiots who think they know football acting like Jameis Winston's drawing the plays up in the dirt when it's the coach that establishes what schemes are put on the field and when the plays are run, only occasionally giving the player some flexibility, in particular during 2-minute drills. Okay? That's what happened. That's what happened. And it's what happened to the Saints. The old bugaboo about not knowing how to adjust haunted them yet again under Dennis Allen. And unless they get a coach that understands what I'm talking about, it's going to haunt them again and again and again and again, particularly if they get caught up in personalities as opposed to intellect. I'll say more on this later. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark NFL News by Zenny62.com. I'll see you.